stopped doing intros because I felt they were quite awkward. You know, I was like, I would shoot the episode, and then I would be, oh, how am I going to introduce this person? And I realized I don't think people actually look at that. I think people will look at the picture of the person on the show.
Yes.
Then after they look at the picture, they'll look at the title headline.
Yes.
Then maybe they'll read the bio. So they'll read like a couple lines, like, is this for me or not? So then I was like, completely confused about what I should say or what I shouldn't say. And then it was like, okay, that's
just scrap.
So now I just talk about it. So like, it's a work in progress and learning as I go, but it's been quite a good one. So congratulations on your new award, and just tell me a little bit more about that award.
So, sorry, Steve. Can we start again?
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You won that. You just won that award,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
So we won one of the best interiors for a specific category, and it was for a project we did in Mexico with Four Seasons called Naviva, and it was a 3-year project. Really exciting. I was the lead interior designer, and there's 15. It's an adult only resort, 15 units. It's got a spa. It's got beautiful arrival building, jungle pool, and it's been recognized in numerous awards, which has been really exciting.
So when you say like interior designer, like what goes on in my head is that, okay, you go find chairs for places.
No.
Okay.
Very incorrect.
So what happens with the process of interior design? Like what is your process?
Okay, so firstly you get an interior decorator, you get an interior designer, and you get an interior architect.
Okay, so the decorator finds chairs.
So the decorator just is someone who's not formally trained, but they have the eye and the aesthetic, and they can choose materials, place things around, more for residential. Okay, and then your interior designer works more on spatial aspects and aesthetics, and they are formally trained. They can design furniture, they look at ergonomics, all sorts of things. So they find that sort of balance. And then you get the interior architect who can change anything to do with the interior, so structural things. They work very closely with architects, and a lot of my experience is more towards the interior architectural phase.
So the interior architect will kind of bring the space to life before it comes to life, right? Like you think about the design aspects of what the experience will be. The architect's kind of looking like where the walls must go, how high they must be, what structurally they should do.
Yes.
And you're thinking about the aesthetics of what that will feel like once it's built.
Yeah, or we'd also, so the architects will focus more on the entirety of the building. Anything to do with the exterior, they'll look at the interior, how that's structurally sound. And then the interior designers, architects, will come in and they'll say we're designing a restaurant. So how is that going to work from the moment the guest walks in, where they'll be welcomed, or how many seats are we going to have? Where are the waiter stations going to be? How is the bar going to look? What materials are we going to use? And then how does that relate to the brand? So if it's a steak restaurant, how do we create a story around that? How do we represent the brand? And then on top of that, you also do operational aspects. So the kitchen design, how is that going to function? Any back of house. Then you have to look at electrics. Where do you need plugs? Where do you need, what's the lighting going to look like? Is it warm? Is it white? There's so much that goes into telling that story, and it's a big process of concept development.
So what goes wrong when you don't exist? Like, do you have any like examples or stories of where I'm sure you do. You're really like laughing, like, of course I do. Like, if we don't exist, it'll suck. But what do you have like stories of like where it doesn't, and then you've come in later and then you've had to like completely fix or the whole thing? So often we find that interior designers come in too late into the project, especially for new builds. So a lot of the time in Europe, you come into an existing structure because there's not many new buildings, but the new builds, architects will design something, and then we'll come in and we'll realize that actually the layout doesn't work. We need to
spot things, change things around, and it leads to a delayed process in reaching our deadline. So it's always important for the whole collaborative team, from landscapers, architects, engineers, the client, everyone needs to be on board with the same concept, and then from there move on into all your technical drawings to get ready for the construction.
And just a homemade studio, so stuff's falling down the cupboard. Cool. But how did you go down this path? Like, why are you in interior design? Like, what's that about?
So I didn't initially go down this path. I started doing a business degree in marketing, and then I did my postgrad in business administration. And somewhere along the line, I met my now husband, and he introduced me to this whole new world of art and design. And his family has a big heritage in art, and they have a big collection. So through him, I was just exposed to this new world, and it was really exciting for me. And I wasn't always so passionate about doing business or doing the corporate world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, I think at some point I thought, let me just do like a little course, let me see. And I did it. I was passionate about it, absolutely loved it. And I thought, okay, let me go to an open day. Went to an open day, and then decided I'm just going to spend another few years studying again, which was quite an adjustment, especially when all your friends have now finished studying, and now they've gone to go work again. So I felt a little bit behind, but I thought, let me do what I'm really passionate about. So I did it, loved it, really achieved, did my, I was awarded a scholarship to go study in Belgium,
okay.
Where I did that for 6 months. And then I came back to do my honours degree. And then my first job was with this company, Luxury Frontiers.
Mm-hmm.
They specialize in luxury lodges all around the world in remote destinations. And the focus is specifically on experiential travel, so creating unique experiences. We weren't just creating hotel buildings that are square block and it's the same hotel that you could find in every country. It's really culturally specific. We use local artisans, we use local materials, so we try to work around that. And through that, I just found this like excitement of how powerful it is that designers could almost change people's behaviors or create these really wonderful experiences.
How do they change behaviors?
So think about when you walk into a restaurant that's like your local Tasca, that's
okay.
in Portugal.
Yeah.
And you know what to expect. You know that you're going to get this food and it's going to cost this much. And that's
this type of tablecloth. If it's a tablecloth, not a plastic sheet, yes.
And then if you go to a well-designed restaurant, you immediately have this expectation that the food's going to be different. You will look on the walls, there'll be art. It just changes your whole perception of what you're going to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And even things that, go to, if you think about a grocery store, where the milk is at the end of all the aisles so that people are forced to walk through and purchase other things. So everything is designed to move people or create certain emotions. In a spa, for example, the lights will be quite dim to relax you. You'll have warm lights. You'll have more comforting materials. So
no, you jump from grocery store to spa. So something like spa shop. I was like, no, it's not that warm. It's quite bright. but like a day spa, right? Like a wellness retreat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd had that experience in the spa. But I'd really been for the milk. But no, that's true. Actually, I've never really thought about that. But if you walk into a space that's designed in a certain way, your attitude in the space and your composure will change. Like
exactly.
If I walk in, I think, well, this is quite fancy. Don't put your feet on the couch. Like
exactly.
The space has actually made you feel that way.
And even with color psychology, you have food brands like McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken or Diggin. You use red and yellow. They're high energy. They promote appetite. There's so much behind it. So when you're designing these spaces, you make sure you use those colors, and it's all strategies to make the experience better and also to make the company's more profitable at the end of the day.
And does this translate into your own life? Do you now look at your space as completely different? That it must be quite a gift. Most of us kind of like bumble along. We like this piece of furniture. We go and we buy it. We bring it into our house. It doesn't fit. It doesn't create then we're battling to place it somewhere like really well. It's like, does it translate into your life? Think like this, when I create this space, this will be the color. This will be the feel.
Yeah. So I think I can imagine things quite easily. I don't have to mull on things for a very long time, but it's much easier making a decision for someone else than it is for yourself.
Okay.
Because it's a longer investment that you have to make. You're going to live with it now.
With yourself.
With yourself.
But you can screw it up for someone else.
But I feel like I know it would work either way, but you just it's just for yourself. I think it's a little bit different, but even just in general in life. I go through life analyzing all design details when you go into a restaurant. How do they design the menu? How do they do this? And I take that and use that into like the current projects that I'm working on.
Must take quite a lot of restraint to walk into houses without like immediate ideas on how someone can make their home better.
Yeah, I analyze everything. It's actually one of the things I used to enjoy throughout my whole life is going to show homes.
Okay.
Loved it. And just analyzing the way people live, how they place things, because your house is your personality, and that comes out in people in people's spaces.
If my house is my personality, it's only 4 years old and 2 years old. It's schizophrenic. It has toys all over the floor for a majority of the evening, and then at about 9 p.m. it becomes a bit of a sanctuary and much quieter.
The kids go to sleep.
The kids go to sleep, and then you win your space back. But it sounds like it started like quite young for you. Was there a moment of clarity that you want to be a creative person? Because it sounds like you went and you studied some business stuff, and maybe the pressure on that was based on what you think would make you money.
Yes.
But who were you as a kid?
So as a kid, I think the one thing I wanted to be was a vet. I wanted to help animals, and that was my passion. I never thought I'd come into design because I was never exposed to the design world. But if I think about myself as a child, my parents gave me the safety to make my room myself, like my own space. So I think every month I would rearrange my room. I'd put posters on the wall. I'd redecorate it. So I always had this passion. And even if I think about the games I used to play, I used to love Sims. I used to always create, like to spend hours and hours and hours doing that. I was always creative. Even the things that I'd sell in primary school were little comics that you'd have to create your own comic with a whole lot of different types of faces and bodies and all sorts of things. So it was always creative, but not knowing that I could be in the creative world. And then I went to a all-girls private school, and there you were sort of molded to either be an accountant, lawyer, or doctor. There was no push to the creative world. So I didn't even take art as a subject, which I wish I did, because it would have helped me today to be able to sketch a lot easier. But I think only through going into university, being exposed to art, that I saw this new world.
Yeah.
And at that point, I could then look back to say, oh, actually, that's me.
I am, so just a couple of things on what you're saying, which I think is like really important and a very big takeaway as a parent, as anyone sort of listening with kids, is that in all of the successful people that I'm talking to, when you look at their childhoods, there was an aspect of freedom that they were given in their endeavors, is that they showed promise or they showed capability. And if there wasn't a reason to say no to something, it was generally like, okay, have at it. I had Kunal Gupta on the show last week, and he was essentially saying, he wanted to be a boss. That's the game that he played when he was little. He's been a boss since he was 6. Everyone else was playing doctor or something else, but he was playing businessman. And when he was playing businessman, his sister was the employee. Like it was there.
It was in him.
It was in him.
In his DNA.
In his DNA. And I get that same sense with you, is that, okay, this was there, and your parents sort of gave that space to really flourish and make something of it.
Yeah.
And in terms of like challenges for you? Like what's been like really difficult or things that you've had to overcome?
In terms of
like getting to where you are now, like in terms of, has it been pretty smooth sailing, or do you feel like it's, there were challenges entering the space? Or do you feel stiff competition, the people trying to hold you back?
So in terms of studying, that was pretty smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
I was so passionate about what I was doing that nothing was too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing for me is I'm a natural introvert. So I've had to really put myself out there, which has taken a lot of energy. And especially moving to a new country, that's been really difficult because now you're in this new place, you have to learn new regulations, you have to create new networks, you have to make new friends, you've got to build yourself from scratch, basically, where back in South Africa you already had that because you've had your school network, you've had your university network. So that's been a big challenge. But now, I mean, we're going out, we're making new friends, I'm socially fit. So it's something that I've managed to overcome. And the biggest thing I do now is just say yes to everything, no matter how scary it is, like this podcast. Say yes, do it, and then no matter what, you'll keep growing as a person.
Yeah, the podcast took some nudging, and but it's okay. Like, but I do feel that actually, having known you for some time, is that there's a tendency to say yes, like why not? Let's go after that stuff. And do you think that's come about because you've now followed an entrepreneurial journey, you're on your own, or is it just something that you realized you needed to do in your life?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's important to push yourself out of your bubble so that you don't remain the same. You change, you grow, you develop as a person. So I think saying yes helps you do that. And the more you say yes, the more you realize that saying yes isn't that difficult. Like you if you put your mind to it, you can do whatever you want to do. So and now with us starting our own company, that's also like you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to really just make the best of every situation that you get, every opportunity that you get, because you never know what doors could open from there. And then that will ultimately lead to your success.
Yeah, actually, I think about it like a little bit differently. Like the statement of put your mind to it, I actually don't think you need to put your mind out of it, because that's normally where the limiter actually is. Saying yes to something is a decision to stop listening to that inner voice that's telling you
yes,
no, or
self-doubt.
Why am I doubting this, or why am I nervous about this? And you can be a naturally quiet person, and maybe like it does drain your energy to sort of talk or make new conversation. But being in a zone of places that or that you're developing will give you momentum and sort of energy to like push through and to learn new things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like really rewarding. And why do you feel like you shouldn't stay static? Because that's what you kind of mentioned, like you'll stay in the same place.
Because then I just feel like there's no growth if you're happy doing what you need to do. There's no growth, and I constantly want to be better, so I need to put myself into different situations that will make me a better person, even if it's not convenient.
Yeah. And is there something that you do to push yourself through to the yeses or to the tackling complicated things? You've moved to a different country, you've started a business. It's been quite a big year for you, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you're currently working on projects that are very big in scale. Is there a method to your motivation, or is it now just like, I'm just going to say yes no matter what?
So I think I obviously do have limits. So if something's not aligning, then I'll say no. If I'd rather put my energy into something that's worthwhile or that'll make me happy, not something that will bring me down. So I think there is some thought into what happens. But if something's ultimately going to benefit you, then I'll do it. And I have a great support system with family and friends and my husband, and the encouragement that I receive there is really, it really makes me a better person in doing these challenging things.
Yeah, and you work with your husband now, so like
Yes.
You guys have started a business together. What's that like?
So it's actually quite fun, I think we found our groove. He has certain strengths and weaknesses, and I've got certain strengths and weaknesses, and we
Like
figured
what?
that out. So like he's the more outgoing, client facing, like he'll build relationships and deal with those sorts of things, negotiate whatever the situation is. And I am more of the detail orientated person. So I love to go into the detail, figuring out all the designs. I'm more, I think about emotions a lot more. So I'm able to put myself into different people's shoes, so I can bring him back a little bit, or he can also just say, don't worry about all the small stuff. So we sort of guide each other and help each other as we go. But because we have different strengths, we highlight those, and we don't fight for our paths, you know?
Yeah. I am. So my wife and I moved to India together for an opportunity with Zomato. So I was like, okay, let's go. It's going to be an amazing opportunity. And we arrived there, and on the first night I was sitting with the founder of the company, and we had a good meal and sort of catching up. And then he looked at my wife and he's like, so what are you going to be doing while you're here? And so she started talking about this idea of this company that she wanted to build. And he was like, oh, we could really use that in Zomato. Why don't you start with us and try and build it for us? And like, it was cool, unexpected. But now you're going to be building a business within a startup. Like, it's going to be crazy, like, opportunity. But literally my first day of work in a new country with a brand new team and a brand new role had my wife sitting across the desk from me. And so we had this first exchange where I was like with a new team and I'm trying to be all like boss and I'm a bit serious about stuff and I really, you know.
She knows that.
And she's never seen me in a professional context. And she's like, started calling me out at the table. Oh, you're not like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, this is not going to work. Like straight away, I walked over to the finance team, found a new table for it. Like, I found a new place for you to sit, and we had to split up. But it was that night, there was finding a new person that she had married, essentially, like that professional persona.
Yeah.
You know, that she was like, we were in a different country, different culture, and now there was like kind of a different person that she met that day.
Adjustment, yeah.
Yeah, so there was some sort of dealing with that we had to get over, but what it was really good for us is that we were together every day. You know, we sat and we ate lunch. We really bonded through that experience, and it grounded me in a really good way because I let go of that persona. You know, I realized that actually, and now more so than ever, and that's part of my authentic and professional, is saying like, I wasn't being the authentic version of who I am, the version that my closest people love and enjoy interacting with. And so I was trying to be big shot, like I know what I'm doing and just, you know, and actually I'm a flawed human being with problems and just like everybody else. And like the thing that people most love about me is my emotion and my humor and all those things. And those are completely being killed in the role. And so like, it was really good for me to just start developing who I needed to be as a leader. And that made me more approachable. And
exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's so important. And I think for us, we had worked together previously, so it wasn't such a huge adjustment, but we have to make a rule where in the evening work has to stop. You can't just keep work carrying on through your whole lives. You have to find that balance of work and then of leisure, you know, going for hikes or doing other things that don't involve work. So we've managed to try find that groove, and I think that's why it's worked.
And how do you manage that? Like, is there a way that you actually say like 5 o'clock's cut off, or what?
Oh no, we just, once we stop working, it's just like we just take a break. We switch off just naturally. We don't have to say, okay, done. It just happens organically.
Because you work from home, right?
Yeah.
So that's like quite tough, right? Like you're running your business from home. You're married at home. You kind of, it's like a 24/7. So how do you create creative stimulation for yourselves?
We have lots of hobbies. So we have work. We like to do, and we enjoy a lot of hobbies together. So we go hiking. I like to go on my runs by myself. Mick does jiu-jitsu. I'm learning Portuguese class. So there are different aspects of our lives that we keep separate. Even with friends, I'll go on a girls' evening. He'll do something with the guys. Like, we keep our lives separate, but still together, that we enjoy each other's company. We don't get sick of each other.
Yeah.
I think we're lucky in that way. It's not, it's not for everybody.
You want to build interest for each other, right? Like you guys are around the boardroom table debating on sort of your business and clients and projects, but then you kind of want to develop interest outside of that. So you've got additional things to value in each other. What do you guys fight about? I mean work-wise. I don't want to know your personal stuff. You can talk about your business stuff. It's a podcast. Like, it'll be great for my engagement. But yeah.
Probably our design style. So what he thinks is nice, maybe I don't think will work, or vice versa. So we often have debates on what's going to work, what is going to work, and so it's just figuring that out.
How do you decide who wins in that? Because design's like very personal.
Well, the thing is, in the end, the one person will go with one of them. The client will decide which one is better or not. So usually you need a third mind, I think, with creativity, and especially doing these projects, because we can be so into a project and so into our ideas that you forget about something else because you're so involved. So having that third brain, or that collaboration with architects or wherever it is, they will help you come to some sort of agreement. But it's often a debate, but it works out in the end.
Yeah, because I suppose you both are, I don't know, both are creative in some sense, but in a normal business setup, it would be the designer's call, right? Like you would say, cool, input taken, but this is the way we're going to go. So it's quite an innovative way to use the clients to add that third mind.
But the clients, so it's our clients specifically now on the project we're working on are the architects. So they know what they're talking about, and they also have an idea.
So you can trust their input.
So we can trust the input. We're not, if the client has a crazy imagination, and now I'm talking about the client of whose property it is, maybe then you'd argue your point. But with architects, we're all in the same industry. We know what works, we know what doesn't. So we can use their input for sure.
I have a feeling that all design people, is that a correct term for you? All design professionals.
Professionals.
All design professionals. I just want to make sure it's politically correct, all inclusive, and all the rest. But like, if you're in design, you actually are already an entrepreneur or solopreneur, because unless you're in a specific agency for it, I find that often you're running quite independently. Like, your thought process is quite different. Your creative process is different. It doesn't really always have like a formula or template for it. So you operate in like a little bubble and then send your creativity out into the world. So the natural progression into entrepreneurship or freelancing or doing things for yourself often makes sense from a design perspective. Is it something that you found is like an easy transition to entrepreneurship, or has it been quite a challenge?
No, because I think specifically in the projects that I've been working on, it's always been a collaboration, and you need teams. Even though they are all isolated, we all have to come together to make this huge project work, and the teams all have something different to offer into the project. So I don't think it's as isolated as you may think it is. So like, I may be working on a specific idea, but we'll come together, we'll meet, we'll discuss, and then we'll develop it further from there. And then in the end, it's massive teams. You've got your engineers, landscapers, architects, operators. Everyone's got their say, and then it's how you bring that together. So I don't think it's too isolating.
Okay. So then, what's the transition to entrepreneurship been like?
Easy, I suppose. Well, actually, no. So I was employed in South Africa, and then I had moved to Portugal and remained on the project that I was working on because it was about a year left into this 3-year project, and luckily Luxury Frontiers allowed me to continue working on it. So that carried on for another year. So through that process, I was freelancing, but still working with the same company. So there was this like nice transition between working with the same client. So it was a nice soft base. And then from there, it was more about handling my own time. So I found it quite difficult to figure out like, okay, now I have flexibility. Now I have time to go for a run midday if I want to. It's okay as long as I get my work done. And that took so much mental power to not feel guilty all the time. It must have taken about a year.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had to be at the office, I had to be at my desk, just constantly working away. So having that mental shift was a huge transition. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same. Yeah.
Was there any sort of like discipline tactics you incorporated to say, okay, now that I do own my own time, this is how I will manage it? Or
yeah, so I think I have I'm not very, I just work. Sometimes I work like over hours, but I make sure that I get my exercise in. I make sure that I socialize. So I try to find that balance, but there's no specific time, like this time to this time I'm working or whatever it is. I try to stay flexible, but still fit in everything that I need to do.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a skill that actually most people need to learn. I think that even in a professional context, you have a 9-to-5 dictator in terms of what you should be doing or what you should be providing based on your contract in that time. But if you work well and your discipline is good and your output is managed and you manage yourself by outputs, you should theoretically be able to do whatever you need to do when you want to do it. You know?
Because what I found is when I was working in a 9-to-5 job, I had a deliverable, but I'd take that deliverable over the whole day. Where now I've got my own time. I can actually do it in 2 hours and then I'm done.
Yeah.
And that lesson was amazing. I was like, I have all this time. And then I try to be more efficient, which was also something.
Yeah. I think that when you over the whole day example is that you actually end up manufacturing the look of busy. Because you crushed if you're really disciplined, you crushed what you needed to do in a couple of hours. And and so you kind of then like, oh well, now I don't need to. Like, so I'll just take a whole day on it and get it out. But now you're like, oh, I do want to run. And I want to run at 11 today, or there's this class that I want to go to, or I want to go have lunch. So that the trade-offs you start to make, you have to build that discipline, but you start saying, okay, well, I don't mind doing 2 hours of evening work after sort of 8 or dinner tonight. And that's going to benefit me directly. So I'm going to take the extra 2 hours in the morning to do something that I really need to do. I think that's the ultimate goal, in my opinion, is not money. It's the ownership of time. Yes. And money is an enabler of that, but you want to say, okay, I can do whatever I want to do, and I'm comfortable, and therefore I can do X, Y, and Z at this time or whatever time.
Yeah.
And where do you sort of see yourself going now? Like, what's the direction? So you've won a few awards, and I want to come back to the awards. I have a question about that, but where do you see yourself going?
So we want to build our business, Art 10 Projects. We want to become an award-winning discipline. We want to get on like really cool projects, more hospitality projects. We want to scale the business, obviously not always being just the two of us doing every bit of work. We want to have the freedom to think big, and then all the nitty-gritty stuff, we could give to other people. But so the ultimate goal is to grow that business and just get really cool new projects, I think.
Yeah. And like, that's my question on awards coming back to, like, why, like, it seems like the design space is like really fixated on awards. Like, it's maybe more so than any other industry. Like, what is it about awards?
I think it's just about giving recognition. It's such a competitive industry. So it's a way to know that what you've done is good work, and it's made a difference, and it's got a certain story. So there's many different award like categories that you can enter your competitions in, and I think it just helps the business. And a lot of designers coming out of design school, they don't have a business background. You don't actually learn that in design degrees, which is unfortunate. So I suppose a competition is a way of just getting your name out there.
Okay.
And if you say, oh, won this award or I've done that, you have people can trust you, and you can trust
you've
you
got street cred straight away, right? Like you're like, I've got the street credit, I've done this,
I've achieved this, and they're like, okay, I can pay the money to put you on my project.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to eating, right? Like you don't want to pay for something that sucks because it's really hard to roll back on that, especially design. Like it's like once the project goes live and things start getting rolled out, like aesthetically the chair putter inners can change the chair, right? But the interior design team and the architecture and architects, they can't change without huge cost or problem. So then, regardless of who ends up paying for that, the damage is still there. And so the risk factor on these things is quite wrong. And that's, I suppose, in any design endeavor, it's like, if it sucks, people know straight away it sucks.
Yeah, and that's your first impression. You're opening a hotel. Everything nowadays is based on reviews. So if someone's going to have a bad experience, they're going to post about it.
Yeah.
They're not going to write the good things most of the time. Unless, well, in design, you'd have Instagram moments. And a lot of the time, when we're designing now, we try design around creating an Instagram moment. So people are more likely to photograph it, post it on Instagram, and there's your natural advertising.
So that's like a good way to offset the investment. You can say, like, we'll build this for us. That's very shareable online. And your physical presence, your physical space will live in a digital space and be shareable in a digital space.
Yeah. Yes.
So how is that working for you? Like, how is now technology and the online space intersecting with design for you? Like, is it a common process that you incorporate?
So we're trying to experiment a lot with Midjourney. We use ChatGPT. It helps make everything a lot more efficient in our day-to-day, but we don't rely on it completely because we find Midjourney's the pictures, we'd have an idea in our head and we prompt it out, but what comes out isn't exactly what's achievable. It's more unrealistic imagery. So why we do use it, though, is to get new ideas that maybe we haven't thought of. A lot of the time, designers will look on Pinterest and gather idea there, whatever it is. But a lot of the time, they're recycled, and other designers are all using that way of thinking. So if we can utilize things like Midjourney in a great way, it can start changing the way we think. And then ChatGPT, just making things more efficient. And then we use programs like the Adobe Suite where we have Photoshop. You've got Adobe Express, which is now integrated a whole lot of AI. So it's definitely making our lives a lot easier.
So that's going to lead into my next question, or my thought process here is that, is it fair to say that all creativity now today is kind of just like rewashed ideas?
In some sense, but no, because all ideas are built on original ideas. So like a chair is always going to be a chair with 4 legs, that's its base, but people will always change its form or create something new with it. And it's like the quote, standing on shoulders of giants, and people naturally do take ideas from others to make theirs better. So I think it's important to look at precedent, but then from there, creating something new and innovative is important. But a lot of the time, it is very easy to just copy and paste. But you should try change it or make it better in some way, whether that's using different materials, making it more ergonomic, or making the flow better within the space.
Yeah, so I think that's where true creativity lives, and then where sort of concepts grow, and that the rest kind of lives. Like the segment of people who are true creatives, like originators, is quite small, right? Like to happen onto something that's completely unique. Like artists must be there. I wouldn't even say sculptors, but like someone who's taking a blank medium with completely new concept and building something. It's where it comes from. But I suppose how far back down the journey of when they were small, what did they learn? What did they experience that they're now using to create art?
Now there's digital art. It's a whole new
space. The art is now talking to a machine and getting it to do what you want, right?
Yeah.
And getting it to create for you. You might not have the physical skill to paint it, but you could have the technical skill to write it, to have someone else paint it for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And people could do it in a faster time period. They could just write something, you get a piece of art, and then you send it to the printers, and there you go. And you can make a whole business on eBay if you want to with that.
Yeah.
It's interesting times for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of AI. Like, so I have AI is going kind of three ways in my mind. It's either it's gonna funnel creativity into set parameters. It's going to enable creativity because it will give you the base of the idea that you can build from,
yes.
Or it's going to kill creativity. And I think it just depends on who's using it and how
they're using
it. So,
yeah. Because I think more it would be your middle option where people will be able to build off it. Because when we've put in something, let's say, for example, an ice cream store, we've put it in, it'll create something that's you've never seen before, but you can maybe take aspects of it and then build from that. And I think that's important. I think there'll always be a need for human design, but utilizing AI is just it's going to take us to new places.
Yeah,
and create new spaces.
I've benefited a lot from AI in terms of I know what I want to say, and I take quite a long way around to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But condensing that into something presentable and fast is always my challenge. So now working with it, I can dump everything of kind of like where I'm trying to go and then prompt AI to ask me questions about that and then to sort of structure that out and give me a working document or give me a working content. But where I find huge frustration is like, more or less in my mind, I know the picture that I want, but I can never get it.
No, it's very difficult.
There. So when I see something on AI where guys like done a Ninja Turtle, I'm like, bro, how did you get that to make a Ninja Turtle? Because if I say Ninja Turtle, it's not giving.
But I'm sure even what was in his brain is not actually what we're saying. We're seeing a cool picture.
Yeah.
So it's tricky, and especially with things like interior design, we are working within set parameters of a building. So for like Midjourney to understand that there's angles or what the roof looks like, there's a lot of prompting that you'd have to do to get the exact picture. But I suppose now you can start putting in sketches, your own sketches, and that can then be converted into something realistic. So there's a lot of playing that needs to be done, but it's exciting.
It is cool. Like it can fill your gaps. Like I think that's it. Now, like if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, you can fill your gaps quite effectively with AI. So, you might be very good at sales, but you like really lack the ability to build a great presentation deck. Like you can use AI to then take your sales pitch and turn it into a deck for you. And that's a really fast way to do it. Or you're saying, like we were talking about earlier, like you want to create social clout. So at the time consumption of creating content is like huge. So you say, okay, give me 30 days of content based on this. It generates it for you. You put your human touch onto it and your tone of voice onto it. And then you use like another AI generator to generate the imagery for you and you're off. So you can produce a huge amount in a much shorter space of time.
Yeah. And even with things like business development, like I said earlier, the designers don't get a formal training in building a business. So now you've got this whole tool to help you build your business, guide you through it, create a business plan, whatever you need to do. So I think it's important that that people are taught in all these different tools and then being able to use it correctly to further your passions.
Yeah, that's a big one. And what are your big sort of competitors now? Like, do you feel that someone's currently writing the tech that's going to make your life a lot harder?
There are platforms where people can create so more so with residential. So I think with residential, you got really great tools where people can create their own room and then they can put furniture and plan out what they need to do. So I think in the residential realm, maybe, but in the commercial industry, in hospitality, restaurants, that sort of thing, I think clients can possibly use Midjourney to get a brief or ideas, but to implement it's a whole different story. You need technical drawings. You need to understand materiality. You need to understand how to tell the story, human behavior, how you can alter that. So I think there always needs to be some sort of human aspect.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Is like at some point you have to live in the real world, and humans. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but there's no algorithm for like you on a day to day, right? Like you might have like the basic structures, but you're open to constant development or constant experiences, and then you can almost like immediately turn that into something. I'm sure AI is trying to develop along that way. That's sort of like essentially self-awareness, but that translation into feeling and that emotion.
Huge one.
How do you overcome? I don't think there is an algorithm for emotion, and so you are literally tapping into people's emotions every single day.
Yeah, I'm constantly thinking like, how is someone going to feel in that space? But it's also a natural thing about my personality. I'm always wondering how the person's feeling. I can feel energy quite easily. So when I design, I want to make the best experience. And I don't know if AI can get it with a cool prompt or a click of a button. Maybe one day.
Empathy is, even amongst people is not common. And I have a very, very high empathy barometer. Like I get a sense immediately. I'm normally on the money, and it's made me very good with people. It's made me very good with relationships. So I think that tech's got a way to go there. But I have a very clear sense on why I am like that, why I am empathetic, and I don't know if you have an idea like why are you like that.
No, I think I've just always been like that. I have no.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's yours?
I don't know. Like I think that sort of growing up, it was I was just my folks were divorced, and I think that for me, attachment to people was like a way of being validated. So I think you learn very young what are the things that to tap into emotionally to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a very good sense of what that was. And so you start honing that very young. And it's a way that you kind of create a voice for yourself, or to create a presence for yourself. And if you're likable, if you understand people, if you listen to people, that was like a really good in for me. And so I think that was one aspect. And I don't think I was ever the main show. Like I was never like a strong leader at school. I was kind of just like get by or like survive by. Mm-hmm. And the way that you did that was being incredibly likable, which means that you develop like a very strong emotional sense with people. And I think that was also like almost like a survival tactic. So it's shaped well now for me in later life. But I've got a good sense that it kind of came from there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. For me, I have to think about it, give it some thought. But I've always been someone who understands people, and I'm very forgiving. So I'll always put myself in someone else's shoes, no matter what they've done. I'll be like, oh, actually, maybe they've experienced this, and I'll forgive. Like, I don't know.
It make you very good at like mediating things, right? Yes. Because you can
diplomatic.
You can be very diplomatic. Because you can immediately but what's good about being able to be in someone else's shoes is you can often bring them into your shoes too. You can show perspective to people that they don't often get. And I think that's also been like a huge benefit, is to say, I don't think you're thinking about this from their perspective. Yes. And just like zoom out and help people keep zooming out from it, so that they're like looking at the whole thing and not just caught in their
exactly.
world.
And it helps. It really helps in the design world, designing spaces for people. It's you have to think about those things, because you are designing for the guest, for the retail owner, whatever it is.
Yeah, like actually that's true of tech too, by the way. Like, so if you're building consumer facing stuff,
you need design.
You have to be user first, and that has to be the fundamental principle of everything that you build. And then from there you monetize, from there you sort of you develop later on, but you have to think about the user first. And so it's the same thing with your clients. It's like often we try to create the product that they should buy, not the product that they need. And
yes,
that's a very different way of looking at the world.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what's currently keeping you busy? I know that you have some projects going on. What are you actively working on?
So we're working on a few things that I can't mention too many details.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a hospitality project. We're doing restaurants. We're doing like conference centers, chapel. Like there's so many different varying projects that we have to constantly create different concepts for each and every single one. They've all got their own identity. They've all got their own challenges. So that's what's keeping us busy. Every day we're currently in the concept phase. So every day we're coming up with new concepts of what the brand is, what's, for example, a restaurant. What's going to be served there? How does that relate to the design? What experiences are people going to have? And we like to create memorable experiences within that space. So at the moment, lots and lots of imaginative thinking, which is fun. It's the best part about design.
And where does it end for you? Like, where does that project finish?
So we'll go from concept, which we're in now, creating the stories. Then we'll go into design development, which is like you take the approved concepts that the client is happy with. You'll then develop those concepts. So let's say, for example, you've got this concept for the bar in the restaurant. You take that, now develop drawings and define all the details. It needs to be a certain height. You need to have certain equipment behind the bar. You need to have a railing for people's feet. Like you just develop it further. It's not just an overall thing. Then that gets approved. Then from there, you take that to construction drawings, and that's all the technical work, all the nitty-gritty.
And do you do that?
Yes, I do that. It's probably the least fun of the whole process, but it is great because you figure out a lot of things that will and won't work before you do construct. And then you get into a phase of ordering, construction. You go for site visits. You figure out things as you go. You're meeting new people. Maybe there's artisans that you want to work with, and they will help you through the project. And then after that, when everything's built, there's launch, and then operators take over.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. And so, what do you hate the most about your work? Technical drawing. Probably
technical drawings. It takes so long just to design out. Same example, a bar. Mm-hmm. There's so many details. You gotta have a plan. You've got to have innovations. If it's a complex shape, you've got to have sections. Everything needs to be dimensioned. Everything needs to be specified, because if you specify, or if you don't specify something correctly, the person building it, they'll just take it on their own to do whatever they think's right, which may not be right for you. So you've got to make sure all the details there, and that needs to also be checked, because you could be so engrossed in something that you miss some details. So it's a lot of like maybe taking a step back and coming to it again, working through it. So when you're working on all these big projects, that becomes a super mammoth task. But that for sure, that's probably the worst.
Yeah. But then the activation to reality must be quite complex, because now you are working with construction, artisans, etc. And so if the project is so immense, making sure that your vision is carried through and things are met, so you don't get someone to, well, this step could actually be 20 centimeters high instead of, I don't know how big the step should be. But how does that management actually work?
So you'll often have a project manager on a project, and with something like this, I'm sure there'll probably be several over different categories. So one will do F&B, one will do accommodation, whatever it is. So you always need somebody overlooking all the design teams, bringing them together, making sure that everything's in alignment. So that but I suppose even now we're all in alignment. We're working with the landscape artists, we're working with the architects, everyone's meshing the ideas together. So, I mean, once you get to construction, there's that set goal, and then the project manager can then take that and make sure that everything goes according to plan. But you'll also go on site visits, make sure that it is the way you want it, and if there are changes that need to be made, at least you can do it quite early.
Okay. And so just changing sort of pace here a little bit and just talking about some personal stuff, is that you're an award-winning designer and you're an entrepreneur. How do you sort of structure your day? Like, what does your day look like, and what do you prioritize most?
So lately, my day starts with a very early morning meeting because we're working with the team in South Africa. So it starts off with that. Then
What time is that?
It was at 6 a.m. Now most of them are at 7 a.m. So we do that 3 times a week. So that's big team meetings. From there, we're trying to reach certain deliverables for different buildings. So again, creating those concepts, building presentations, because now I've got this idea in my head. I have to translate that onto presentation. And on there, it has to be quite easy to understand because not everybody can visualize what's in your brain. So yeah, it's finding that way to present that, and that takes so much time to do that. So that's a big part of my day, building the presentations, because in a couple of months' time, we've got to now present that to the client. So I do that. Find time for exercise. Do things around the house, personal things.
I mean, I know
learn Portuguese.
You learn Portuguese. You like to exercise. You like to bake, and like in terms of your personal value system, like the takeaway to just try and understand is like, how do you value and how do you prioritize things for yourself in terms of your values? Like, as an example, for me, exercise is like a mainstay, and because it generates a lot in terms of the discipline of my day, it dictates how I eat. It has a really big emphasis on how I feel. So that for me is a critical piece, and then time with family is like another major critical piece. So those are like high priority items, and then I kind of fit everything around that. Like, do you have stuff like that?
So I think for me, it would definitely be exercise. I find exercise, if I go through a phase of not exercising, my stress levels go through the roof. So finding that time to go for a run, during those runs, I'm able to just free my mind, actually not think about anything, listen to a podcast, whatever it is, switch off from the task of trying to design, which when I'm in a good state, I design a lot better. I have mental capacity to create cool ideas, I suppose. So I do that. Another de-stress is baking. If I need to just de-stress, I just love to follow a recipe and create, let's say, for example, a cake. Whatever it needs, whatever flavor, whatever it is. I love to go through that process of creating and then sharing that with people, and then watching the people love to eat it. It's so rewarding for me. So that's a big thing. And then spending time and building relationships. So very similar to you, having that time with my husband, going for those hikes, being in nature is a very big thing as well. And also making time for family back home, because we don't get to see them often. So when we do, we really appreciate that time. So we actually take off work just to be present in the moment. And that's a big thing that I've had to try and learn, is to be present and not worry about the things that I can't control.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think that we are susceptible to a lot of distraction, and it's in our phones, it's in our work, it's kind of calling to us from the moment we wake up, and then it's not letting us go when it's time to go to bed. So it's creating discipline around disconnect, around being present, around you time, are all sort of critical things that I find is a common theme across people who are successful, is that they get the basics right, and then the rest kind of falls into place. And the minute that the basics aren't right, then they're not optimal.
Everything else spirals.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I find that it impacts the way I think in my design work. Every creative person, or everyone, I suppose everyone in general, they need that break from work to be optimal in their working environment, because so many people will work consistently. They'll then maybe become depressed or whatever it is. They won't find that balance, and then eventually burn out. So finding that balance and being okay with having that downtime, giving yourself that space to have downtime is important.
Because you can have guilt attached to it, right? Like, and then it tries to tell you something different, right?
Exactly. That guilt's the worst. It will eat you up.
Yeah. And I just wondering about like, I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm going to have to edit this part out, so I wasn't sure what I was going to say. But I kind of just wanted to understand like a little bit more about, if you had to go back to your 5-year-old self or your 10-year-old self, would you give yourself different advice? Because it sounds to me like it's all been pretty smooth.
Yeah, so it's a tough question because the way my life has ended up, I'm really happy. I have nothing to complain about. Everything, even if bad things have happened, it's led me to what's happened today. So for me, it's not, I don't know, it's a tricky question, but I think maybe I would tell myself not to worry too much about what people think. And
do you do that now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm constantly thinking about other people, like how they feel. So that's a challenge. So I'd say just don't worry about what other people think, because most people are living in their own worlds anyway. They don't actually worry too much.
No, the amount of time people think. You think people think about you way more than they actually do.
No, they probably don't. Like, maybe it'll be for like a split second and then we'll be lost.
Yeah.
So it's just that reminder. And then what else? Yeah, just I don't know, do your best.
Yeah.
And be happy.
You did a good job.
You did a good job. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Be strong.
Yeah.
And
no, I think that's a big one. Is that the reason I talk about like childhood and thinking about yourself in that context, like for me, a big one is to go back to myself and say, you did a really great job. Mm-hmm. Like, well done. Yeah. I think that's it just kind of gets lost in the wash, and we often get caught up in like dramas and whatever, but like to go back to yourself and say, you did a really good job. And that for me was like a very cathartic thing to do, and I felt like really good about that, and like I've turned out okay.
It really is amazing, because I'm sure like when you're younger you worry about your future so much. You're like, I hope I'm going to achieve, I hope I'm going to do this. But if you go back, you tell yourself you're going to be good, you'll be like more relaxed about life.
I think that the version that you think you're going to be when you're older is like very different, and so to just relax. But I hope that the 9-year-old version of me thinks that this version of me is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, I go back, it's like, what did you end up doing? Well, see, I don't know, I got a job. Sounds like that sucks. So
that's terrible.
No, but you should create like
jungle jumps. No.
Yeah, no, like I'm gonna go back. Like, oh yeah, I cycled across Malawi and I slept on the side of the road for 8 days, and like you go,
fun.
You got to go and tell those stories. You got to be like, this is what I did. Like
you did Ironman.
I did Ironman. So I think that, and you moving to a different country, setting up a business, exposing yourself to nature. You used to tell me that like on the first of the month, you guys like schedule into first Monday, the first of the month, you go to museums.
First Sunday of the month.
The first Sunday of the month, like that. You're very connected to your environment. You've come here and you've taken ownership of your space, like, which is a big thing to do. Like,
yeah, you have to.
You can't be a passenger.
Yeah, you've got to integrate yourselves. You've got to learn, continuously learn, be inspired. I mean, us going to galleries always inspires us. We're always discussing art pieces, and it stays in your mind, even if it's not direct in your design work. It's still inspirational in some sense, and it's super important.
And who are your inspirational designers or people that you really love?
So I'm really inspired by a woman called Kelly Versler.
Okay.
She's a famous American designer, but not necessarily for her design style, because I think it's not my taste, but I love the way she's able to layer everything, create an environment. She's got a really, really successful business where she sells like really unique furniture pieces. She designs all of it. She's employs so many people. So I'm more inspired by her persona or how her business is than her design style, but I really am inspired by her.
Do you know the photographer Annie Leibovitz?
No.
Incredible. But she's her presence is a big piece about her when you see her, and she's probably most of the famous portrait photographers that have photos that you've seen, Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, all of them, is her, like those iconic pictures that is actually she's the one behind the camera. But the biggest thing about her is she has this presence enough to tell the Queen of England to take off her crown.
Oh no!
Right, like that's it. Like, I'm going to take a photo, and the Queen didn't take off her crown, but the Queen's not going to take off her crown. But she is that. Like, this is the space that I own, and I want you to take off your crown. And so I think that's a big thing, is that you feel the presence of greatness before you feel the work, and that's something that's been. And what about mentors? Have you had any great mentors that have helped you sort of along the way?
Yeah, so at Luxury Frontiers, we're working with great teams, and I've been mentored and taught about the hospitality industry from a lot of great leaders, specifically Graham Levy. He's the managing director of Luxury Frontiers, and he's got lots of experience working with operators, working in design, and he's guided the company in a great direction. So from him, I've learned a lot of what I know, and he's given me the trust to lead some of my own projects and be the lead interior designer. Even though my experience was limited, I was still given that trust, which was vital, and it made me want to prove myself more.
And why do you think you got that trust?
I don't know. I think I proved myself.
In what way?
Like I was given, when I first started, I was given smaller tasks, and I did that exceptionally well. And throughout my design career, I was always top of the class, and I had this repertoire. So I think when it came time to getting a project, I was given the first project I worked on was Camp Sarika with Amangiri, and they are a really phenomenal brand. And to be able to work on a project like that at such a beginning phase of your career is just unheard of. Usually it will take 10 to 15 years of design experience and exposure to get those projects. So I was very fortunate to have that. And from that project, I then tried to work hard. We worked really well as a team, and then kept getting more and more projects, and the experience kept developing, and the trust kept on being built. So even when I decided to leave South Africa to come to Portugal, I did have to resign, but I still got to work on the project. He trusted me to keep working hard from here, which was nice.
That's good. So I think just on that first opportunity, like, how was that opportunity given to you? Like the first big project that you mentioned, can you just say it again? It was
Camp Sarika.
Camp Sarika with Amin?
With Amin Giri. It's a Mine Hotel group.
Okay, and so you can see, like, I'm not a big hotel aficionado, but how was that project actually given to you? Did someone approach and say, "Hey, we really want you to work on this"? And
so that project was given to the company.
Okay.
They had. I'm not too sure of the ins and outs of how exactly they got it, but through networking and
yes. But how was the project allocated to you?
To me specifically?
Yes, yeah.
I just got assigned on the project.
Yeah.
Ida, you need to take control of this, run with it. This is what we need to achieve. These are the presentations or the ideas we have to get across. Do your research, whatever you need to do, and then we'd have constant meetings and developments, and it went from there. And also, just sorry to add to that, when I first started this company, the company was at 6 people.
Okay.
So they were working on projects. Now they're at like 56.
Okay.
So it's grown.
Small. So there was a small team. Hey, you're going to pick up and run with this. And so I think that's like the point I was getting to, is that you were in the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
Timing was a big thing about where you worked first and what your exposure to potential mentorship or opportunities could be.
Yeah.
But when you got your shot, you took it.
Yes, you have to, and you just have to give it your best.
Your best.
And the interesting thing is that when I applied for this job, it was a 6-month contract, and I thought, let me just do it. We were possibly planning to move to Cape Town, so I thought this is perfect. And I didn't know anything about this company. Went for the interview, and yeah, they were happy. They loved the work that I had done previously with studying, because you have a big portfolio that you share with them. And from there, it turned into a permanent contract. And I've worked with them now for going on 6 years.
Yeah, I think that's it, is that you're going to be presented with big opportunities. You might not know they're as big as they are, but you have to apply yourself to them. And, you know, with me specifically, I had the same thing. I was working in IT, and, you know, my boss at the time was really difficult. He wasn't my boss. He was the director, the owner of the company. And, you know, whenever there was an IT call for his office, people hated to go, because you'd walk in and he'd spend the first 15 minutes of your walk into the room crapping on you as the tech support. It's like, why is the cheater system, which was proprietary debt collecting system that we had, not working? And I made it a point that I will always go to his office to fix his computer. Like when the call came in, and the rest of the other engineers were very happy about that. They're like, oh, Steve will go do it. And we built a strong rapport, and he ended up being a really good mentor for me and gave me my first big shot, my first big opportunity. Yeah. It's like, hey, you need to be in sales, and he moved me into sales.
You built that trust.
You built that trust, but it came from, he's tough, I'm going to solve this problem. It was like when I disagreed with him about what he wanted with a print or whatever, like I'd say it. It was so basic at the time, but it is that thing. You take a shot, you get the opportunity, then doesn't matter how daunting it is. Like the fact that you had to go and do research on things and figure it out is like a big deal, right?
Yeah, you can't, even now, constantly researching different things, different regulations, because we're not working in our country, we're working in different countries. I've worked in Maldives, Mexico, he was in Utah, Bahamas, and each come with their own challenges. So you constantly have to keep.
Yeah. So there's an element of unknown that you're always facing, and you can't let unknown be an obstacle, right? No. Like you have to say, okay, I'm going to go and smash this thing and do the best at it. And worst case, you come away with a huge amount of learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You learn all the time, and it's being open to that learning. And I think a lot of it comes to being passionate.
Yeah.
Loving what you do. And when you love what you do, it doesn't matter the time you're spending on researching or learning.
Well, that's actually quite evident from you, actually. Like, I think throughout this conversation, the fact that you talk about it's been quite easy, it actually hasn't been easy. You've walked a road already. But you see it as easy because you're enjoying it, right? Like you're ignited by the passion. Like even you're hard pressed to find, like you said, like even when it was difficult, it ended up being okay. And that's testament to saying like you're putting yourself into something that you like deeply committed to, and that is a good guide in general. And I think often we get caught in a rut of I need to make money, I need to be successful. And, you know, I need to impress my friends. I need to drive a nice car. Like, these are the wrong sort of drivers in terms of success. But the right drivers make you feel like, okay, I worked until 3 a.m., but okay, we got the job done.
Yeah, we're happy. I'm happy to work on public holidays or whatever it is. And it's something that I see throughout my peer group is that a lot of people have taken the path that was given to them or told to do, or what school said they should do. And a lot of them are burning out and completely unhappy. So I'm a big advocate for people to follow their passions. And if that means resigning or whatever it is, do it. You're young. Like everyone will grow. If you're passionate enough, the right opportunities will come and you'll thrive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Is like, if you leave it too long, you can forget what your passions are.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you have to find them again. It becomes harder to find that flame.
And you have more responsibility. If kids come into the picture, whatever it is, and it's harder to break away. But people who do, it takes a lot of courage, they're happier for it, and therefore can give more to their kids or more to their relationships around them.
Yeah.
So I'm very supportive of people following their passions, because the design industry isn't seen as something where you get paid very well. But if you have your own business and you are working on your own projects, you can do really well. But you're not told that. There's just this perception of like, oh, they're artsy people or whatever they are. You know?
Well, it's a competitive space, like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not very well understood. Clearly, I thought that you put chairs in buildings, but it's so there's not a lot of depth in it. But if you're going to apply yourself to something and you throw yourself at it 150%, it will develop into the right things for you. But it's definitely, even if it doesn't, it's not going to do it if you do nothing. So you might as well do something and figure that out.
Yeah. Exactly.
So where can people find you?
You can find us on www.rtm.com.
Okay.
And also on Instagram, we're rtm_projects, where you can see some of our work.
Okay, awesome. And what projects do you like to work on? I mean, can you build people's homes, or do you just want to do big corporate commercial?
Yes. So we can, and we've experimented in some residential, but we focus more on hospitality, and that includes things like restaurants, retail stores, offices, anything to do on a large scale. I particularly love boutique hotels, because in there you do a mix of everything. We do spa, wellness centers, and there's more exciting things there. So that's our focus, purely on hospitality.
Okay, amazing. It's been great to have you today, and thanks for
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Awesome.